to see you again. And by the way, thank you for your outstanding work of saving and freeing thousands of Canadians.
Thank you, Ezra. It's so nice to see you again as well. And it's been our pleasure to run the Fight the Fines campaign in Ontario and assist Ontarians with dealing with their tickets.
You mentioned Ontario because in Ontario, paralegals are allowed, they're accredited by the courts to run a lot of trials, provincial offenses, which is what many of these pandemics were. So the Democracy Fund has 3 full-time lawyers, and you lead the team of 4 paralegals. You and your fellow Democracy Fund paralegals, you have 1,300 cases in Ontario alone. Is that accurate? Or at least you had those because you've been disposing of many of them. Is that an accurate count?
Yeah, I would say that's close, 1,300 to 1,500 total over the last couple of years.
That's amazing. So, I mean, I want to say thank you to you and congratulations to you and your team who are just cutting through these like a hot knife through butter because you're experts on it now. I mean, no one in Canada has done as many of these as you and your team. But the other day you mentioned something that I thought, boy, we've got to have Jenna Little on TV. She's going to talk about this and let people know. I mean, you go in and you fight each case one at a time. You get disclosure from the police. You go through it, you run a trial if necessary. But you mentioned that, I think you said over 100 cases all at once were being dropped. And I thought, whoa, what's that about? How did that happen? And it made me think of that strategic idea. If you flood the system, that alone will break it. Tell me about this 100 or 110 cases.
Well, we've been noticing over the past little while, starting about in the summer last year, that in Mississauga, they've been putting a lot of tickets onto withdrawal dockets. And the Mississauga court is where all the people with Quarantine Act tickets from the Pearson Airport, that's where they go. So that poor court is just flooded with these Quarantine Act charges.
Right.
And so we've started noticing that they're putting them on these secret dockets, and they don't send out a notice to the defendant. The only reason we find out is because we check monthly to make sure that nobody slips through the cracks. And we started noticing this trend.
Now, tell me, I don't mean to interrupt you, but just for our folks who might not know the jargon, what exactly is a docket? Is it a list of court cases? That's really what a docket is?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. There's multiple dockets per day in each court, in each room. And so the docket is essentially just a list of matters that are to be dealt with at a specific time. And
you just said something, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but you've just said so many interesting things in like 60 seconds. So Pearson Airport, that's the name of Toronto's international airport. It's the busiest airport in the country by far. And it would be where thousands of these Quarantine Act tickets were issued. And I never thought about it. They would all go to the nearest court. Like they wouldn't be heard around the country because the alleged offense would have occurred there in Toronto, I presume. So this poor court and judges and prosecutors, they were handed thousands and thousands of Quarantine Act tickets because those busybody health police at Pearson said so, and they may not have wanted this to be their life's work, I guess, right?
Well, I can imagine not. I mean, I can imagine getting into a career to deal with quasi-criminal offenses or even going to law school to work for the Ministry of Attorney General and not wanting to have to do thousands of these trials. I can imagine that that's nobody's career aspiration except for my team and mine.
Well, listen, you're fighting for the little guy. I mean, you at Fight the Fines, literally anyone, any religion, any background, we didn't discriminate. Anyone was welcome. And a lot of these people were low-income people. Many of them were new Canadians who didn't have a familiarity with our legal system, didn't know what their rights were. And by the way, the fines were atrociously large, like $5,000 plus per person. So you have a family of, let's say, 4 coming into the country. That's $20,000 worth of fines. That's gonna destroy a normal family.
Absolutely. I mean, even with the surcharge, which is 25%, one of those tickets comes to $6,250 each.
Oh,
and we've had
God.
people who have had 6 kids, 8 members of the family total, and each person gets a ticket.
That's a life savings wiped out. That's their entire home equity wiped out.
Yeah, absolutely. Even one person can't afford a
Yeah. Not
$6,000
these days.
fine,
Oh, now, I
you know?
interrupted. Jenna, you were on a tear there, and I apologize for interrupting, but I just
It's
wanted to
okay.
unpack those two little things to clarify what a docket was, and just to think about all these, every single one of these tickets being heard in the same court. Okay, so you discovered that there was a secret list, as in they didn't publicize it. It was a withdrawal docket, a withdrawal list. And what did that mean, and what did you discover?
Well, when it first started happening, we would get in touch with the court directly to make sure that this wasn't some sort of error or maybe it just was input incorrectly into the system. But we started noticing the trend where it would be tens, scores of clients on each docket. And up until yesterday, these dockets were happening probably monthly, I would say. And yesterday we had a docket with about 60 clients on it. All of them were withdrawn. We've got
Really?
another docket coming. Yep, another docket coming up on Monday with about 50, 60 more people.
So these
It
are
seems to be
fight the
happening a
fines
lot quicker.
cases. These are
Yep.
people who came through our videos or our emails, went to fightthefines.com, filled out the form. You and your team got on them. So when you're saying 50 or 60 a day are being withdrawn, those are 50 or 60 people that you've been helping, that Democracy Fund's been helping.
Yes, those are 50 or 60 of our clients. That's not
Unbelievable.
including members of the public who are representing themselves, and
Wow.
they just don't know this is happening.
Can I ask you, is there any reason given? I mean, I can guess a reason. The court is full. They have more important things to do, like go after real bad guys. Maybe they don't think they're going to win them all. Maybe they just can't. I mean, some of these trials might be half a day or a full day. Imagine taking up months of court time for this. That's my theory. Has anyone from the government, from the prosecutors or from the courts given you their explanation for these? And you mentioned they're not publicized, these lists, these withdrawal dockets. What do they say is going on? Do they have an explanation?
They don't really, but I think we can infer that it comes down to a couple of variables. One being court resources and the cost that it takes to prosecute and have trials for things like this. And two being the fact that only a small percentage of these public health officers are actually showing up to trial. So if they
Really?
were to have a trial and these people don't show up, it has to be withdrawn. And then that's a huge waste of resources and
Now, let me
time
stop you
onto
there
itself.
again. I'm learning so many things from you, Jenna. That's incredible. I just want to go there again. So these public health officers, so those would have been the people at the airport issuing the tickets, I take it. And I'm guessing a
Yes.
lot of them are not still employed doing that. I think, or maybe they are. So when you're saying they're not bothering to show up, is that because they were like a temporary health cop and now they've moved on to something else? And so when it's trial time, 2 years later, 3 years later, whatever, they've moved on and they couldn't care less. Help me understand why a public health officer would not show up at court.
I think that you've hit the nail on the head that the majority of these people, if not all, were just temporary public health officers to help deal with this project, you could call it, and to issue these tickets as some sort of a deterrence. And now, fast forward to 3 years later, some of these people are nurses, some of them are former police officers, some of them are security guards. They're just random people who just happen to qualify to be an officer. And especially the people who are nurses, they've all moved on with their lives and they've got jobs and they're not going to take hours out of every week to attend court for something that maybe they don't even believe in anymore.